Hello and welcome to Great Things with Great Tech, episode 4. My name is Anthony Spiteri, and this podcast is all about highlighting companies doing great things with great tech. And in this episode, we're talking to Stanimir Markov, Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Runecast. Hello and welcome, Stan.
Hello, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So look, just before we kick off, a bit of housekeeping. So just a reminder, guys, that this is episode number 4. The first 3 episodes can all be downloaded or listened or watched on YouTube and your favorite podcasting platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're actually spread across all of them now, primarily on the YouTube channel. So please log on, please subscribe, and we'll basically kick into the goodness that is Runecast now. So Stan, this Runecast, such an interesting company when I look at it, but to me, it's just a company that came out at the right time in terms of, you know, your founding principles, what you wanted to achieve, but also you filled a gap that wasn't there in the market. So we're going to kick into all of that. We're going to talk a lot about, you know, where you guys innovate, where you filled the gap. But just to kick us off, we're going to go through the history. Always an interesting history with these companies. It's what I think the listeners want to hear in terms of what made Runecast. So just before we kick into some of the history around the company, how did you get started? Like, what were you doing out of university and whatnot?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in technology. I mean, I first started playing with computers when I was 6 years old. My mom is actually an informatics teacher, so I started programming a little bit in BASIC. Had a computer very early on when I was pretty young child, and then I started computer science. So I'm originally from Bulgaria, so I graduated in the Sofia University computer science. I was supposed to become a developer. Actually, I really love programming, but I decided to take another route. I thought of taking on a role which is a bit more social when you communicate with more people. So I became more of a sysadmin.
Yeah.
And
hey, you know what? That's a very, very similar sort of, I mean, look, I'm not the CEO of any brilliant technology company, but in terms of where I started, I did the same thing. I did computer science. I loved programming, but just worked out it wasn't for me, right? Like I didn't see myself being a coder all my life, and went into system management and, you know, did that side as well. It's quite interesting how a lot of us fall into that sort of category. But yeah, so obviously through that, you know, you got your first jobs, and I think eventually you landed at IBM. So just tell us a little bit about, I mean, obviously it was a little bit before IBM, but when did you actually get into IBM and do your thing there?
Yeah, it was back in 2006, and I'm currently based in the Czech Republic, so I actually moved to the Czech Republic from Bulgaria.
From Bulgaria,
yeah. I was working there for a web hosting company, and then I saw that there's a job offer in IBM, and I thought, okay, that's really a great career choice. I could learn a lot of things there, and that's exactly what happened. So I started early 2006, and I started as a Windows / network admin, but also started doing some VMware and Citrix back in the day.
Okay, yeah.
At the time, it was pretty much VMware was an animal that not many people knew about, and it was mainly used for test and development workloads. Organizations were really afraid to put their critical systems on virtual.
That sounds familiar to one platform today, right? That starts with K. That's interesting. That anyway, we might touch on that platform a bit later on. But yeah, continue.
It was evident that the big virtualization wave is coming, and you mentioned something earlier about really being at the place at the right time, and I think. I've decided to pursue a career more into virtualization, and it was a really interesting technology for me. At some point, everybody started virtualizing, so it was really great time to be in that space. It still is, of course, but it really enabled me and my co-founders built a VMware Center of Excellence within IBM that grew to really big size.
Right, interesting. Yeah, I think. And from memory, I mean, you're a VCDX as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
So just for those that might be listening but don't know, I mean, the VCDX is kind of VMware's ultimate highest certification, and it's brutal to get through to get that certification. So I know that I was kind of trying, and I didn't quite get there. Did a few of the exams to lead up and did a design, but didn't push through. And always feel a little bit jealous about the VCDXs because it was one of those things I never got to. But always got mad respect. And I think that's when I first came across you, really, when even before you started Runecast as a VCDX. So
yeah, so I somehow thought that you were VCDX. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. No, I've been lying all this time.
Yeah. It was really exciting actually to pursue something like that. I really love gamifying also my professional career, and pursuing the VCDX part is also a great game to play because it's something that seems unattainable at a certain point, and then
yes, I can agree.
Yeah.
But
once you split it on smaller steps, and you just achieve each one of the steps, eventually you can get there.
All right. So you guys are, now you're in IBM. You're in the Czech Republic, but you're not in Prague. You're out in a town that's 2 hours away. And I'm going to butcher the name. I know how to spell it, but Brno, is that what you guys?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I'm here right now. Actually, it's a small Silicon Valley in Central Eastern Europe, actually, because there's a lot of companies like IBM, Red Hat, AT&T, SolarWinds. Really quite a lot of companies here. A lot of tech talent. There are many universities here, technical universities. So.
Are the universities there built to pump out technical talent? Is that their speciality?
There's a technical university. There's another one that's has a great informatics faculty as well. So it's absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why these big companies. That's the way they're choosing. Also, one of the parameters how they choose where to open a new center.
Yeah,
where there's like fresh brains pretty much coming from the universities, and there's some excellent talent here. So it's a great place to start a company as well.
Yeah, well, we obviously, from my perspective, I mean, Prague is one of my favorite cities in all the world. Czech Republic as well. I was there. I was lucky to be there early in the year, and I was also there late last year before everything kicked in. And I was actually supposed to be in Prague 3 times this year for various things. My company, VMworld, we have a headquarters there in Prague, like many others. And you're right, the talent there just seems to be almost unlimited. And you can see that it's if you call it the Silicon Valley of Europe, or it's pretty close. So it's and again, beautiful city. In fact, I've had a couple of coffees and a couple of meetings with you. You've made that 2-hour drive to Prague to do that. So appreciate it at the time. But one day in the future, we'll hopefully do it again in that beautiful city. So now we're up to, I think, 2014. So yourself and your co-founder. What's your co-founder's name? I had it before. But
we have a few, but you've probably met Eileen, who's the CTO.
Yes, CTO, Chief Technology Officer. Yeah.
And actually, Eileen is the one that originally came up with the initial idea about Runecast. So it's the light bulb just went up in his head. We all jumped on board. So that was back in 2014. I mean, at this point, we already had quite a big VMware Center of Excellence, right? We were over like 26 people, maybe managing most of the IBM customers running VMware across the EMEA region. We were defining best practices for VMware within IBM. I was also the holder of the security technical specifications for VMware within IBM, which is kind of a template of the security hardening settings that is used for all the security compliance policies for every individual customer.
I'm starting to sense a bit of a theme coming through. Yeah,
exactly. So, we did also a couple of cloud offerings, the architecture that involved VMware, several IBM Redbooks as well that are related to VMware and other IBM technologies. Everything came about with one project that we're executing called Defect Prevention Project, where we had to look into thousands of problem tickets that were based on outages or other serious issues on the VMware systems. And we wanted to analyze the root causes so that we could maybe find some patterns and see how we can decrease those incidents from happening in future. And what we've noticed that over 90% of those root causes were based on issues that were already documented somewhere online, either in the VMware knowledge base or some forums, documentation, security guidelines, and so on. We thought if we find a way how to use that human-readable unstructured data, turn it into machine-readable rules, we could proactively catch those risks and problems before they strike, before they cause a purple screen of death or some security incompliance or other serious issue.
Yeah, so talking about like natural language processing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and basically to take what is something that takes humans, visually being able to see, but maybe too late reactively, and basically analyzing that and being able to proactively troubleshoot the issues before they happen, right? That's kind of the idea of Runecast initially.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and one really specific big problem we had was the final tipping point, and I still remember it was there was some problem with HA on one of the ESXi clusters or vSphere clusters, and HA did not work. Basically, one of the hosts went down, and the VMs were not restarted on the surviving host. It was quite a big customer. We spent days trying to find the root cause, and finally we found out that there is a knowledge base article that was describing that if you have a certain heap size configuration on the ESXi host, and if that host has access to over certain amount of gigabytes of data stores, then there could be a problem with HA. So it was really hidden problem, like you would not be able to find it. It's not obvious that you get an error message and you realize what it is. The impact was pretty big. We remediated it for the specific customer, but it took really long time for a whole team to find out what the root cause is, and then we were asked to check all the other customers that we're managing if they're not affected or potentially at risk from this specific problem. So and the VMware knowledge base has over 30,000 articles. That was just one of them. So we thought that it's humanly impossible for anybody to really make sure that you're not at risk from any of those issues described there, which are, by the way, updated all the time.
Yes.
That's why, automation, that's where automation comes in, as you mentioned. NLP and AI.
So interesting enough, so you guys were thinking about, when you were still at IBM at this point, so at what point did you guys say, hey, this seems like a good idea, let's leave IBM, let's take the risk and start a company? When did you decide that?
Yeah, it was at some point in 2014. We were thinking about it probably even since 2013. So it took us a bit of time, for this to get the bravery to go and do that, because after all, we were not in our 20s, so we were not just after college and
responsibilities and whatnot.
Kids and so on. At some point we thought we always wanted to do something like that. We finally felt that this is really in our field. It's not something like we're just deciding to do some dating app or something totally irrelevant. But we saw the pain. We saw that how we can actually solve this for everybody, for so many customers, and we knew what we should do and how to do it. So
targeted from the start. Targeted from the start. That's interesting that you say you didn't start a dating app or anything like that. It's interesting how many companies start as a particular idea, and then pivot completely because they just see that whatever direction they were in wasn't working, so they pivot completely to something new. But you guys have been razor focused on this particular mission basically from the start. So 2014 comes along, you're building it up, and then I remember this, 2015, you released Runecast Analyzer version 1 at VMworld San Francisco. So VMworld's an amazing place for this sort of technology. I mean, did you ever go to a VMworld before this one? I'm assuming you might have gone to
I've been since 2009 probably. I've been going to a lot of VMworld.
So VMware Illuminize and whatnot, and you know that on the solutions exchange, the big vendors pay the money, and then they have the big stands and the big booths, and that's kind of the dominant factor. But I always found that walking around the back periphery of the solutions exchange is where you find all the good stuff, because it's where you find all those companies that are just coming up and starting. And I would have thought in 2015 you guys probably started in that way, where it was a booth at the back somewhere, a little bit of traffic come through, but the idea was there. And just talk us a little bit about what the ride was from that launch in 2015 at VMworld.
It was so exciting because this was our baby. So it was the first time that we will present it to our people, basically the virtualization community, because we've been going to VMworld for many, many years before that, and now we're coming to VMworld, but in a very different light or in very different role. Previously, we were always attendees, so no pressure, it's just go to some sessions, to some parties, and so on. And right now, we actually built something. It's our baby. We don't know if people would call it ugly, if they would like it. What will be the reaction? I still remember being there at that little booth, and we were troubleshooting the last issues because we were just actually releasing on the second when
Oh wow, that's crazy. That's awesome. That's such a good story. That like it's so Silicon Valley, tech crunch. Let's just get it working.
Yeah. For those that haven't seen actually the Silicon Valley series, I can't watch it, by the way. I've seen like 2 episodes, but it's so
too close.
Too
close to home.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to watch it. It's a great series.
Yeah. But it was such a thrill. I mean, when the doors opened and people started coming in and they stopped by the booth and we started pitching and explaining what it is. And from the very initial reactions, people saying wow and the sparkle in their eyes, because we really hit home for a lot of them, especially the admins that have been firefighting and fixing issues on the VMware
system. I'm getting chills like just thinking about it. I'm excited for you. Like I can feel that sort of the passion and what it is. Because it's a cool feeling, right? And even for me, just you talking about it, it's amazing. And you're right, because this space had companies in there like this sort of proactive monitoring, remote monitoring. I was involved fairly closely with another company. I won't mention them, but this was not a space that was not without people there or companies there trying to do it. And I think you guys came on and did something different. And just tell us a little bit about because you guys won the Editor's Choice that year as well from Virtualization Review in 2015. So big waves. What do you think made you get to that point so quickly? What made you successful in that particular period?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things, and Virtualization Review, actually, they saw us at the VMworld in San Francisco, and they then wrote this article and gave us this award, so that was really great. I think that companies in the past attempted to do what we did, the automation of the knowledge base and other sources of information. But I think one of the biggest things that we actually managed to execute on that, because many other companies also in the VMware operations space also focus on capacity performance management, which is also good. It's a problem to be solved, but it's a quite populated space already. We focused on a problem that we ourselves didn't have an automated way to solve or anybody else out there. So other companies have attempted to automate some part of the knowledge base without success. They focused on other features. So technically, it was pretty challenging, actually, and difficult to do that. I think when people saw that it actually works, and they can actually discover some seemingly undiagnosable problems in their environment, and they could have eyes to see the problems now, something that they actually had to discover after the outage happened, and the fact that people have been really struggling with this break-fix kind of approach for many years. I think this clicked with people quite a lot. So
I think so too. I was certainly an early user of this and saw it for what it was, and I was always excited to test it out and trial it for you as it came out. Even back then. So in 2016, you started to get some momentum with customers. You grew. You started to hit different markets. Because I know you guys traveled everywhere I was. You were, and that's a lot of travel. I even remember seeing you guys in Victoria and Sydney. In Europe, it's just mental how you guys have done the travel. But that's, I guess, the nature of a startup. You guys are going to be at the events, hitting the community, hitting those decision makers, and being right there. So that's obviously part of it. And then in 2016 as well, you guys got, because up to this point, I'm assuming that it was kind of more self-funded, but you guys got some seed funding, 1.6 million euros in 2016, and that was your what would equate to a Series A?
That was seed. We called it seed. It's something between seed and Series A. So we actually also got the pre-seed in 2014. That's also we just had this idea. We had all the credentials. We found a local accelerator here, so that was the very first time we got some funding. It was 140,000 euro. A local accelerator. They gave us offices, countless Red Bulls and coffee and all that. So anything that you need, to get things going. And once we started to get some revenue customers, some accolades, we attracted more enterprise VCs, and we got our first big investment in 2016.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I guess, from there on, in 2017, you started to do updates. I mean, 1.5 was a fairly significant update because I think it gave you some scalability. You supported multiple vCenters. You did some more compliancy. You did stuff with some automation. And I think you also continued to win those awards, which are also important in the industry, CRN awards and whatnot. Just before we go into the last couple of years, which I think has seen you branch out quite a bit, let's just touch on, a little bit about the underlying sort of platform that Runecast, how it works. Because it's quite interesting and it's different to a lot of other platforms that are sort of similar to this in one way or the other. So I believe that, for my knowledge, it's basically an appliance that you deploy, an OVA into a vCenter. You do a couple of configuration items and it's almost ready to go from there. You connect the vCenter up and it starts doing its thing. Under the surface, you're leveraging open source to a certain extent. So I think it runs on Ubuntu. Is that correct? Exactly. So you take an Ubuntu server. Then what else do you use basically to put it together from an open source perspective?
Yeah. So a lot of it we've written from scratch in Java, and but when it comes to log analysis, so Runecast Analyzer performs both configuration analysis and proactively discovers risks and security and compliances in your environment. But also there's a reactive portion to it, and which means that Runecast Analyzer acts as a syslog server. It receives the logs from the ESXi host, and in real time it matches them with problematic log patterns from the VMware knowledge base. So basically it tells you, based on specific log patterns, if you're experiencing a problem, what the root cause is and how to solve it. So for the log analysis piece, we are leveraging the Elastic stack. So Elasticsearch, Logstash. It's really great. We've just put our technology on top, and it's working out really perfectly for us.
Awesome. And that's a great example of doing great things with great tech, right? Like the open source technology there is powerful. You've seen a way to harness it, building your own technology on top of it, and then leveraging it at that point. That's the greatness in that, right? So what is different about you guys as well is that everything is processed on premises, right? So you deploy the appliance and then all of your analysis and processing is done on the actual appliance itself, which is very different to a lot of other companies that I've seen go down this path and try to attack the same problem, where they actually take the data off site and they put it into some sort of data lake, they put it into an S3 bucket or something. And there are issues with that, right? And this is one of the things I think has made you be so successful, because as soon as you take data off site, you start to get admins and companies that are nervous with that data moving off site. Was that a purposeful decision that you guys made in the early process, or
absolutely. A lot of the customers, even back in the days when we worked at IBM, a lot of our customers there would not have been willing to send any of their data outside their premises or to a third party. I mean, nowadays, actually, the data privacy and security subject is becoming even more relevant with all the GDPR and GDPR-like laws updated all over the world, and the data locality is a big thing as well, and in general security. So it was certainly a purposeful decision based on what we've seen with our customers, and it's really paid off. I mean, we do sell in all verticals, but some of our customers, or many of our customers, are financial institutions, also military defense organizations, and many others that are healthcare organizations as well, that are really concerned with security. So it's really important that you just deploy one single appliance. It's very, very scalable, so you just need one appliance, and everything happens in that appliance. So nothing is being uploaded. It doesn't need internet connection to work. it's recommended that you update it regularly. So you could either set it up to via secure proxy to update itself, or
you guys have got an update server sitting somewhere that basically will send down the updates.
Or you could perform offline updates as well. So the admin can download the update file. You could even set up a local update repository as well. So it works perfectly for dark sites. We have Runecast Analyzer running in submarines, in oil platforms, and
crazy. I love stories like that. It's always cool when you hear stories like that. So just going back to that, normally when you're crunching numbers, crunching logs, and doing analysis, you need pretty good compute, right? Pretty good. The overheads are quite serious and quite significant, and that's why a lot of companies shift it to a cloud platform or some other platform that's got a little bit more scalability in the compute. How have you guys made it work locally on premises and in these sites, just harnessing the customer's compute power? Because I think that's quite interesting that you guys have managed to get it working as efficiently as it had, yet not leverage some of these bigger sort of compute platforms.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the biggest technological challenges I would say that we had to solve. And now you could really deploy just one single virtual appliance, have, for example, 2 virtual CPUs, 8 gigs of VRAM, and it can really handle huge environments just by having it only with this amount of resources. So I would say I can give you an example also with our biggest customer that they have 13,000 ESXi hosts. So it's really
that's a lot.
Environment.
That's a lot for anyone.
They're using just one single Runecast Analyzer appliance to manage all of that.
That's crazy.
Volumes of actually, because of that customer and onboarding them, we had to also optimize really heavily a lot of things and rewrite many things in the product to make sure that it can handle environments like that. And it doesn't add any overhead because we're leveraging the vSphere API and a few other methods. But whenever there is analysis, you could only see increase of CPU and memory utilization within the virtual appliance itself, but not the rest of your infrastructures. We keep it contained within the virtual appliance. The methods in our rules engine, which is really the one that's using these thousands of rules to discover problems in the configuration and logs, it's pretty unique. That's something that we just recently received a patent for. And
I was going to say, congratulations on that. I saw the tweet come through to get something from the US Patent Office. That's significant. That's a great achievement for you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, and that's really a key part of our technology, and it really also relates to how efficient this is really to analyze millions of interdependent objects, which essentially is your VMware infrastructure, or maybe AWS infrastructure. Anything can be represented in a directed graph of interdependent objects, like your virtual machines, hosts, port groups, and so on.
So tell me about RAIKA. So that's the Runecast AI Knowledge Automation. So because that also specifically in 2019, I think you guys got some specific additional funding. I think it was 1.9 million euros to kind of accelerate that development. So talk about that and how that fits into the Runecast story.
Yeah, so from the very beginning when we started with Runecast, we knew that we somehow have to crawl these human-readable unstructured sources of knowledge and as automated as possible turn them into machine-readable rules. But in the very beginning, we had to do a lot of manual things, like the crawling was automated, but we still had to, in a large extent, create these machine-readable rules manually. But we knew that over the years, we need to take steps to automate that part from unstructured human-readable knowledge, like a knowledge base article, and turning it into some machine-readable rule. So that's when we started developing these natural language processing modules, which help us actually find the important parts of, for example, a knowledge base article, or maybe hardware compatibility list, or any other source of knowledge, and create the machine-readable rule from that. We already had some developments in that regards, but last year we won EU grant, Horizon 2020, in the amount of 1.9 million euro, which really helped us accelerate this development. So we already have great improvements, great results, and more automated creation of these machine-readable rules.
Yeah.
So this is all internal platform right now. So far, we've been discussing just Runecast Analyzer, the flagship product
Yes.
that customers get on-prem. This internal platform, RAIKA, is something that we also might commercialize in future. For now, we use it just for as part of the end-to-end process of crawling all these sources of knowledge. So knowledge bases, documentation, forums, even some curated Twitter accounts that are of influencers.
Okay. Yeah.
Because sometimes, well, such as yourself, actually, like you can sometimes post some potential problems that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I like that. I like that. So you're and what you guys are, I think what's crazy and good about this is that you hear so many organizations, and everyone's, well, a lot of people are guilty about it, where they say AI and ML and whatnot as buzzwords. But you guys are literally doing it. You're leveraging this technology to create something that is almost, it's almost got its own little self-describing sort of brain, hasn't it? And it's working for you guys and helping you to optimize stuff that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So you're actually using it, and that's so unique in the industry from my perspective in terms of where we are at this point in time. So that's unbelievable.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's one, we'll probably get to that, but that's one of the reasons we were recognized as a cool vendor by Gartner just recently.
Oh, yeah.
Because of our unique approach, because they recognize it also that it's unique across the industry. And you're right, everybody's trying to throw some of those buzzwords, these days, but essentially most companies, from what I've seen, just use some Python scripts or some fuzzy algorithms, mathematical algorithms, maybe to predict when your capacity will finish or something like that, which is quite common across the board. So I think we really leverage AI because we need it to achieve this purpose.
That's awesome. So you guys, obviously you were born in the VMware. You guys are all literally, VMware practitioners. You saw the need from a VMware perspective. So VMware has been your core, like a lot of companies. A lot of companies have come out of that VMware ecosystem. You've moved into different areas. You started with this VMware, the vCenter Analytics. You've gone into the desktop as a service. You did network virtualization with NSX. And I think really awesomely, you stepped already firstly into AWS and be able to get some information about customers' AWS instances, which I actually think is amazing. I actually installed it last night and got some surprises myself. So after this, I'm actually going to go in and probably try and chop the bill down a little bit. But, with that, how do you've obviously done some sort of disruption in the market. How are you going to continue to disrupt the market? And then also, how do you disrupt and challenge yourself internally?
That moment that I described, that's really it was so thrilling of the launch of Runecast at the VMworld Solutions Exchange and the reactions that we initially got. This is kind of the drug that keeps us going. Actually, this kind of sparkles in people's eyes when we show smart way how to solve problems that they've had from before, and this is what really keeps us going. So this need for expressing ourselves and doing more and more innovation, it's always there for us. So I'm really excited about developing RAIKA more and more, the knowledge automation. And as you said, we started with VMware. We always had this mindset that we're starting with VMware. That's what we're doing right now. But this concept of automating the human-readable knowledge, turning it into machine-readable rules, and discovering risks proactively before they cause outages or security incompliances, this can be applied to any technology out there.
Wow,
So the next thing that we integrated with is AWS end of last year. So which we're really following the journey of many enterprises and many admins for that matter. Because
the multi-hybrid cloud is definitely the way to go, right? So it's happening more and more.
So all of us used to be first Windows and Linux admins, right? Then we started learning VMware, and now we're learning public clouds and containers, and we're doing that because also the whole industry is going that way, right? All the enterprises are adopting now more the hybrid cloud or multi-cloud model. On-prem is not going anywhere. Just everybody will have a flavor, basic use case of everything. And you need to have automation wrapped around that to make the operations easier. and that's what Runecast helps with. It helps reduce the complexity and helps increase the security compliance as well. Not only for VMware anymore, now for AWS. And we're working on integrating with more and more technologies.
Can you give a bit of a preview? Because I think we alluded to it earlier, but
we're really heavily working on integration with Kubernetes right now.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about that. I think the two, like, enterprises are pretty much pushed almost to adopt it on enterprise level. Previously, containers were used by some silo teams here and there of developers.
Exactly, like you said, it actually ties up beautifully to what you started with, where you talked about virtualization in the same way, dev and test. I mean, and that's kind of where this Kubernetes containerization is at. You know, it's on the cusp of mainstream adoption. Is that driven from you customer requests, or is it something that you guys are taking a bit, maybe some customer requests, but also putting the bet in there that it is going to go off in the next few years?
It's a combination of the two. But definitely some of our enterprise customers, we get questions about Kubernetes a lot, and but obviously the industry is going that way as well, and so it's a combination of both. I mean, you can see the big ones like VMware with Tanzu and IBM acquiring Red Hat mainly because of OpenShift, and HP with HP Container Platform, or Esmeralda as they call it right now. Everybody's doing acquisitions in 2018, 2019, trying to prepare for really the container war. So who's going to really provide the best container orchestration? But certainly some of our biggest customers, they're actually, many of them are in position of choosing which container platform they're going to choose.
Well, that's great. So we'll start to wrap up. When we could literally talk for hours. But we want to make this great things at Great Tech. We want to try and squeeze into 40 minutes. But I think the last thing for you is, like, ultimately, what makes Runecast stand out? In a couple of sentences, why is Runecast a great company doing great things at Great Tech?
Well, many people, we get this feedback a lot that our product is built by admins for admins. So we started the company to really solve big problems in an innovative way, and so we have proven really that we can do that. We have this unique approach of automating the human-readable knowledge, using all of that to discover risks that you cannot discover otherwise in your infrastructure. So we help people or admins pretty much ease up their operations, reduce the complexity, and automate their security compliance. We will keep doing that. We are as agile as we've been. We are stronger than ever, and we still have this motivation to keep innovating and adding new things and seeing the sparkles in the eyes of people that use our product. So awesome. I think we're pretty special in that regard.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks, Stan. And so we'll wrap up now. Look, just to reiterate, Runecast can be found online. I think it's runeCast.biz. Check the show notes. The show notes are going to have a link to Runecast, the history. You guys have got a free trial as well, from what I understand. So we'll link to that in the show notes. You can find myself, Anthony Spiteri, at Anthony Spiteri. Great Things with Great Tech is on YouTube and all of your favorite podcast channels, and at gtwgt.com. This has been episode 4 of Great Things with Great Tech. And until next time, thank you.